In this video, I interviewed Siddharth Dwivedi to understand how we went from an engineer to someone who started his own digital marketing agency, as well as his tech company that ventures into social media analytics. Siddharth explains why he and his two friends never sat in a single placement in college, and why data is and will always be the foundation of better marketing. He also explains why 1,000 true fans are better than a million followers. And he also explains why designers can be compared with your mother. Curious to know why? Then take a look at this video. With that fascinating introduction, my name is Jagdish and I'm from PicMaker, a free do-it-yourself design tool that allows you to create kick-ass designs without any knowledge about design. So let's dive right into the video. So to start with, okay, I went through your bio and I saw that you did engineering, and after engineering you become a performance marketer, and now you're leading your own agency and you have your own startup. So how did this journey come into place?
So actually, I back in the very first year of the college, I started my own magazine, and I led it as editor-in-chief for 3 years, I think. And that's where I kind of built my team. I learned organizational skills. That was my first crowdfunding experience as well. We went to students directly and we asked them, there is 1 month, 3 month, 5 month subscription. Would you want to subscribe? We didn't have a magazine in fact at that time, but people were ready to actually support it. We can show the vision. That was my first learning. I sold ad inventories for the magazine as well. So that's where the team was built. And eventually I thought this can be turned into another business when I was kind of finishing my college. And I trained myself personally in performance marketing, and that's how everything turned out to be. Uh, and the great thing was I had a team to back me. I think that was one of the most fantastic things that can happen to you.
Love to know how you started XOR Labs. That was your first venture into the agency setup. So how did that come into place? Was it by an accident? Because I see three people who founded it. I see you and two other co-founders. So were you guys friends in college, or how did it fall into place?
So I told you about the magazine, right, just now. So
Exactly.
it was the three of us who started the magazine as well. So I think the best part was I already knew who my partners are going to be, and I was quite confident about we were actually confident about each other's skills and commitment to the project, which is the most important part. And then we also kind of made a pact when we were coming out of college that we are not going to apply anywhere. Although we got a lot of offers, three of us, but we didn't join anywhere. We didn't sit for any interview. We were quite committed that this is something that we want to start. And why XOR Labs is there is no specific reasons for that, but we had the idea that whatever we are doing, it has marketing implications. And XOR Labs was actually initially started with the idea of content marketing in mind, because that's how you can relate the magazine and XOR Labs, right? But once we started with the content marketing part, we kind of knew that this can be evolved into something else. As we talked to the brands, we got to know that there are other requirements as well that they are looking for.
Okay, you started Vaizle as a social media analytics platform. So is this something that you had in your mind all along before starting an agency, or is this something you started because you learned a lesson or an idea while running your agency? How did that come into place?
So it was kind of part accident and part planning. And the reason I say that is because back in 2016 during IPL, we wanted to we thought, why not track the brand? This is the biggest marketing event in India, and I think Nitin, my partner and teammate, he came up with the idea, why not track the brands on social media and see how they're performing and also assist them. So I think that time we tracked 50 or 60 brands at that time. We built a very rudimentary tool which used the API of the social media platforms. We fetched the data. And we kind of tried to assess what the results are. To our surprise, that kind of really took off. We got amazing responses from the brands. It was downloaded, I think, over 450 times, all organic. And we kind of knew that this has potential. And on the way, while we were improving the tool, we also published reports on Pro Kabaddi League, then 100 Indian startups, and also National Football League. We also like try to use the tool to actually get some idea on the elections as well. So we explored, and while this was happening, we got our first client on that. That was one of the biggest real estate companies in the world from Dubai. So we were reached out. They reached out and they wanted specifically the thing that we were actually developing at the back end. So we thought that this has potential, and we thought, why not turn this into two? So this was part accident and part planning.
I read on your bio that you have managed close to 17 million, dollars in ad spends. So what's like the biggest lesson that you've learned when it comes to ad spends?
So when you start working in a specific domain, you think that's everything, right? I mean, that's how I was raised. So with performance marketing, what I really never understood in the initial days, and that could have helped me, is performance marketing is not for everyone, and not suitable for everyone. It has to be it has to be changed based on what businesses you're working on, product to product, industry to industry. The application completely changes. My biggest learning is like when you're planning to, let's say, spend almost like 50 lakhs 1 CR in ad budget monthly, right? I mean, the one of the fundamental thing is you should be really really sure about what you are going to do and why you are going to do it, because a lot of things you won't have at your disposal in the initial days when you're, let's say, launching it for the very first time. But you kind of build upon the data and then try to scale the budget. So this was one of the best learning, because I think the first project that I had it completely messed up. I think we were working at budget of almost like $10,000 per month, and I totally messed it up. But yeah, that was a learning. I think when I look back, a lot of things could have been improved at that time if I knew these things. That you need to be also thinking about the product. You need to be also thinking about other marketing assets, your brand visibility as well. Means what is the perception of the people? How good is the product? Does it have retention? Are you getting good kind of feedback? Because it all works in the loop. It's not like that you're doing one thing and it's going to like change everything in and about your business.
Exactly. On that, like, what's your like biggest mistake that you learned after spending so much dollars in ad spends? If you're okay with sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not? I think one of the biggest mistake I would say is not planning in advance. And by planning advance, I mean, of course we all do plan it, but let's say not planning for, let's say, next 3 months,
Okay.
right? Usually when you're even spending, you have a very short view, and you don't build this view unless you have this entrepreneurial mindset, right? You're thinking in 6 months term, you're thinking in a year's term, right? So when I was starting out, my biggest, I think, mistake was I was thinking in terms of 1 month, and that's how a lot of marketers, business owners, brand managers think that way. And the reason is that they're like, I mean, they're hitting the target for this month, right? At max this quarter, right? But they're not thinking about the year. Whatever you're doing, it has to be like something which can be actually increased, or let's say accentuated as the business business years progresses. Because a very single ad spend is a sunk cost, right? You spend that $100 is gone. How do you strategize that its impact, it stays, and how do you actually use that ad budget to also create different kind of assets? By assets, I mean, it can be even community. I mean, there are clients when we are working on right now. We are not spending a single budget on conversion or lead gen ads out of their 5 lakh ad spend. We're totally spending it on just brand building activities. So it changes. You just don't have to think in terms of, let's say, getting sales, getting leads, and you need to plan everything. In long term mindset also.
Media, like you work in a field where you deal with social media analytics. Vaizle is one of those tools. So what do you think, is works the best, like the best tactic, long term tactic when it comes to social media marketing?
I think building. The biggest lesson, I think. It changes with time. If you look at 5, 10 years back, a lot of people are focused on followers. Now people are not looking at followers, but they are looking for genuine people who actually cares about what you have to say, right? So the biggest the learning, and I would say the strategy in social media right now is, it's not about, I won't get into the nitty gritties of it, like building content and building community, but you need to kind of be very focused about what is your core ethos when you're going social, right? I mean, it's like working like a politician, right? You need to be consistent. Of course, our politicians are not, but you have to have a very core idea about what you are going to look like. You have to stick to it, even if you're getting 1,000 followers who are really, really vouching for you. That's much, much better than having 10,000 or even sometimes a million followers. There's this guy called Kevin Kelly. He came up with this idea of 1,000 loyal followers, right? If this 1,000 loyal followers are paying you $10 per month, you're doing almost $100,000. I mean, even yearly, you're doing almost like 10,000, $100,000 very easily, right? So the whole point is, rather than going for big volume in a times like this, you need to have that loyal followers. And the advent of platforms like Substack and Medium has kind of also uh, attested to this philosophy, that it's no more the big audience, there's a very small chunk of audience who actually cares about you. That is the need of the hour when you're thinking even about social media.
So, what's your favorite book? No, general book, your favorite.
So general, I mean, I won't go into like the recent one was. So I remember reading this big novel called Gone with the Wind. It's a very romantic kind of novel based in the, I mean, pre and a little bit of post Civil War era of US. That's where I also learned the idea that how actually racism worked, and that's why I mean, when you are in business, a lot of people actually discourage you from going and reading fiction. But that's my first memory. That's been my best book till now. It's almost, I think, 900 or 1,000 pages of book, and you get to learn. There are certain characters that never left me in that particular book. There is this depiction of a very strong character of a woman that I really admire, and there's a character of different kind of men in there that you can still relate to in your lives. So that was one of the first book I remember that I think I will never forget. If I get a chance to read something maybe years later, that's the one book I would like to read. Then there was this book called The Story of Philosophy. I read it when I was, I think, 10 years old, and I couldn't understand it for the obvious reasons. I was too small to understand it. But I read it back when I was 18 years old, and it made sense. So that was, and I think somehow that book influenced me in many ways, not just in terms of uh, like as a in career wise or personality wise, but that book actually made me think, because the philosophy in itself is all about questions, asking the right set of questions. And the book is very deep in research, 16 years of research by Will Durant, one of the great historian and philosophers of contemporary times. And I think what that book allowed me to do is frame my arguments and understand the logical fallacies when I'm talking, right? And it helped me improve as a person, as a communicator. I mean, a lot of things. I still fall back to that book. I have the whole book underlined in all the places. So yeah, these are the two books I would say one of my favorites.
Switching on to marketing, sir, like, what's the best book that you've read on marketing and psychology? So this, it would be great if you give me one book on marketing and one book on psychology.
So I wouldn't specifically like put them in the category of marketing and psychology, but I read books in a way. I mean, when you read on a variety of subjects, as a reader, I've been like ardent reader. I read on any subject that kind of intrigues me, right? But as you read these books, you'll notice that you are able to relate the concept from one field to the another. So, for instance, I think I have something here with me. So there's this book I read, right? It's called Talking to Strangers, right, by Malcolm Gladwell. So technically, this is a book about communication and how we actually talk to strangers per se. But it's a great book about marketing as well. If you look at it, we really, I mean, this process, like you and I talking right now, this is a very complex process.
Exactly.
If you look at it at the deepest level, it's extremely complex. I'm moving my hands when I'm talking, right?
Exactly.
We are smiling when we are talking, right? We are like pronouncing some syllables which has certain meanings. It's an extremely complex process, right? And whatever the motives of this conversation is, I mean, a lot of things is happening while we are talking to each other. And the point is, this book will actually make you understand that it's not that simple. I mean, especially when we are talking about the strangers themselves, everything is so obvious when we try to judge ourselves, but everything is so complex when we try to judge ourselves. But when we try to judge others, it's very very simple, right? Log to aise hi hote hain. Like, people do this, people do that, but it's not like that. And this is the book, I think, which is great about marketing. Everyone should read it. And on the psychology side, there's a book called The Psychology of Money. uh, it's a book less, I mean, a lot of people will read it because it is about money, but I would recommend reading this book because it's more about psychology. How we think about money is also about how we live, right? Or how we choose to behave with people, or how we choose to behave with our juniors, our seniors, the downtrodden in our society, or the leaders of our society, right? So the psychology of money is a book about how we lead our lives. And I think psychologically speaking, this is a great book. So one of the first, and this book is actually, I can show you if you want to, the psychology of money, right? The first chapter of this book is, I would say, will be the most underappreciated chapter which is going to be ever, because this book is extremely popular and I see people passing out its quotes on Twitter like every single day. But the one chapter from which you'll never find quote is the first chapter. And first chapter, if you'll read it, it is about empathy. It's
Exactly.
about understanding that the decision people make is based on their life's own experiences. You cannot judge them on that, right? So this book is, people read it about money, but this is more about psychology.
Books back into marketing. uh at Vaizle, you guys have seven free tools. So I
Yeah.
want to ask you how that has helped increase the your brand value, or on an SEO level, on a core level. How has that helped you increase your domain level? Like, has it has the effort been you know been great for the return on investment that you got?
So that's, I mean, marketing wise, that's a fantastic question, and I think that's a great takeaway for everyone who's listening this. Those seven tools, they are created solely for two perspectives. So one is giving the free value to the users. Second is, if we can actually target certain keywords, which is extremely popular. I mean, you can go into any SEO related tool, and you'll find that all those seven tools combined, they rank for extremely popular keywords across the world. And I think more for over, I think 50 to 60 keywords across the world. And just with that tool, we have been able to build a list of almost 10,000 people
Wow,
just with
wow,
those
wow,
particular
wow.
features.
Mm.
And the marketing expenditure zero, practically nil, right? So the reason I recommend, so in SaaS, it is like that. And not even SaaS, I would say, in any kind of business, if you can offer people something for free, maybe a taste of the product or something they are looking for, and solve their problem. I mean, nothing like that. So it has worked wonders for us, to be very honest with you. And we continue to actually build free tool. We are coming up with a new free tool called Instagram engagement called Calculator. It will be live in a week or so. It will be our eighth free tool. But the whole point is that has given us huge traction.
You mentioned you guys use close to 11 tools for 17. I think you're 17 people, right? 17 people or something. So you mentioned
Yeah, right now we have increased, but yeah, that was written. Right now we're 23, team of 23.
23. Wow, that is awesome. So I saw that you guys use close to 8 tools, and I saw that you guys used a tool for designing. Okay, so this question I had to ask you, like, from I'm not a designer, I don't design a lot. I don't know if you're a designer or not, but if someone is not a designer, like, how should they approach a social media ad creative? Like, what's the, you've run so many ads, so you know that ad creatives are really important. So what are like the fundamentals of a social media ad creative?
Right. I mean, that's a good point. A lot of people, when they think about creatives, they think in terms of uh, aesthetic sense, right? And aesthetic sense is completely subjective, right? I may go to a party in a black t-shirt, and in my eyes, I'm awesome, but a lot of people won't like that. So one thing that I always recommend when we talk about creating social media posts, it's not about the creative itself. It's about the people. Whether you are writing something, whether you are designing something, whether you are communicating something. It's not about what you are. It's about the other person. Is it adding value in their life? And value can be anything. It can be knowledge. It can be information. It can be humor or entertainment, right? So your core focus should be on, like, when you're designing something, is it adding certain value in the time? I mean, the point is, when it comes to social media, you're not just competing against your competitors, you're competing against every single person who's on social media, right?
Exactly.
Right, you're, I mean, think of it like this, as Jigdish said, let's say we are trying to build a personal brand. You're also competing against Netflix, you're also competing against maybe Zomato, maybe Swiggy, because they're also kind of looking for people's attention, right? We all are looking for people's attention. And when you are creating something, your sole focus should be, will this make the person who is scrolling through his feed stop, take a look, maybe share it, maybe like it, but at least you should stop at your post, right? So that is the whole, and that should drive the design decisions. I personally don't like to meddle into, like, telling the designers this is how it should look like. The best I should, from my side, should be giving them a sense of what I really want to achieve with it. But as a non-designers, the best recommendation I make is, don't meddle into design. Don't at all. Like, that's a big no. Just focus whether it is achieving the purpose that you wanted, to be achieved. And I think that kind of solves a lot of problem when it comes to design. Leave it to designer, right? I mean, he has certain expertise in it. He has spent time in it, right? We don't go and go about telling our moms that namak itna dalna hai, right? Masala itna dalna hai. We let her decide because she's really good at it. The same goes with designers. Let him design it, right? You just focus on whether it is delicious or not, right? That should be the objective.
Oh, that, because I have 2 to 3 friends who work as full-time designers, and I understand the troubles that they go through when people especially meddle with the design and make it horrible. So I love the way you put that answer. Don't meddle with designer. Comparing it to your mom. Oh, this is good one. This is good one. So okay, so this question is also related to, no, closely related to Vaizle. Like, uh, how is, marketing analytics and data, how important it is in, today's world. Like, we read a lot of I've read a lot of blog posts that state the importance of it. But from, as you've created a startup based on it, you worked on an agency that's based on it. So how important is data and marketing analytics to you?
I mean, it's a no-brainer actually. I mean, if you're working in marketing, I would say there is only two things. So one is communication, the second is analytics. The rest of the things that can be figured out, these are the two toughest parts in marketing. What are you going to say? How are you going to measure it? Right? Attribute it. So these are the two biggest problems. Now, coming back to the analytics part, right? Let me take you back to the design question, right? That you are asking, what's a good design, right? How do we actually assess if this design is actually good, if this landing page is really good, right? For a simple reason, if it gives the result, right? Which is a better, let's say, football team, or which a better football manager who actually give you trophies, right? The same goes with creatives as well. Which is the best creative, which is actually giving you result? What is the best marketing campaign, which is actually giving you sales, right? So it all comes back to the analytics part. It has multiple applications, but the point I'm trying to make is, no marketing activity can be executed without having the analytics in mind. Unless you are measuring it, you are not doing it. I mean, that's almost a cliche, but that's how it is. I mean, there is no running away from it. A lot of time when I talk to young marketers who are just trying to get into the field, I mean, they're too focused on doing things rather than measuring things. I think half of the time in my agency, we are totally focused on measuring things rather than doing things.
In marketing, like not everything can be measured, right? But so, for example, let's say that I'm doing a podcast. So maybe one way to measure the impact of the podcast could be to measure the link clicks from the podcast, or another way could be to measure your branded search in SEO. So there are some things that cannot be measured to their full extent, right? How do you go about it? Is that the right way to look at it, or should everything be measured in marketing?
I'm an optimist. I would say there will come time where we'll be able to measure everything, but right now we cannot. I mean, to just reiterate a point, at this stage, you or any other brand or the biggest data analytics company in the world, they cannot measure everything when it comes to like measuring every single touch point. There was a certain requirement for me just after the last IPL. They wanted to track the impact of the standees the brand has installed across the different doctors in the country, right? I mean, that is something that at least that there can't be pulled off unless you have planned. I mean, it becomes even more impossible when you have executed it and then you want to see how you are going to measure it. So there's no fixed way to actually do things and measure things. But yeah, I feel that there will come a point where you will be, where we all will be able to measure things. I think there is a time for that. It's almost like geology, right? Right? I mean, even if you predicted rains, there is one single parameter which changes, and the whole weather changes, and you will never be able to. So, and since there are like millions of other factors, right? You really don't know like what really changed the weather suddenly.
You are you're kind of social media marketer too. So if you wanted to have one social media superpower, what would that be?
Right. That's a very fascinating question. Um, I think the ability to come up with content ideas almost immediately. And that's a great. I mean, if I could, like, if I can almost be the content man, social media content man, if I can say so. You sit here, okay, kal kya post karna? Okay, you got the idea, right? And you're able to post it right then there because the thinking part actually takes a lot of time.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean that is one superpower I would like to have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time and giving us the opportunity to interview you. This has been really helpful on a personal level, okay, and even for my organization, Pickmaker. So thank you so much, sir. And okay, so we're done with this. Do you have anything to add on this level? Any message?
No, Jagdish, this was fun. I mean, this was a quick fun session. That's how I expected it to be. And thanks for having me here.